Following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break!
With Nick Eatman, Brian Broaddus, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Break presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Derek is not here with us today in today's show, but we got Brian and Nick. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Just got done with the draft show, mock draft. Should be a lot of fun. I know it's probably going to be, hanging out in the magazine here soon,
The
Nick?
magazine coming out. When does that come out?
Oh, it comes out probably in about 2 to 3 weeks. Probably right at the start of April. So
Get in there.
Good
Yeah.
deal.
Saw the
Getting there.
cover, and it looks really good.
Looking good.
Yeah,
Looking
it looks
good.
really,
Just got to
really
get
good.
We're inside a month. Well, not inside a month, but close to a month for this draft coming up, too. Man, that thing happens pretty fast.
Around the corner.
Around the corner.
Well, today we're going to just kind of recap everything that has happened since last week in free agency. To start off the show, recent news was that Tony Pollard just signed his franchise tag
There he
with
goes.
the team.
So he's guaranteed $10 million. No matter what happens, he gets $10 million from Dallas Cowboys.
yeah. It's just kind of funny how sometimes these players have not signed it right away. They view the franchise tag as a bad thing. In the running back situation with Tony Pollard this year, obviously he does not feel it that way. I think this is a good thing for the
Especially
Cowboys.
coming out of an injury.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you would
Sign it.
I would sign any $10 million deal.
It's guaranteed, yeah, like we're talking about. It's what we're looking at, though, in free agency is a lot of the running backs. These teams are going to – in 2 weeks' time, the pro days are going to stop, and teams are going to start getting into their draft rooms and stuff and putting their boards together. And what's going to happen is once they do that, I think free agency really, really slows down. And you're also going to get these teams, as they're going to put up these running backs, there's going to be about 12 to 15 names. And they're going to say, maybe we don't have to sign a guy. Maybe we don't have to. That's why I was kind of thinking something about Ezekiel Elliott. The quicker that he can get something signed up and get something firmed up to go into the fall, I think would be better. Because once these teams start to look at that board and build it, they're going to go, we don't have a need for a $4 million running back. Maybe we don't have a need for a $2 million running back. That's the danger that you run into when you start to get late into free agency.
Well, let's get into these guys, and by the end of the show, I want each one of you to tell me how you would rate free agency this year for the Cowboys so far in the job that they've done this year. Since we're talking about running back, let's jump into Ronald Jones, that the Cowboys signed him.
You know what's funny though? How much has happened in the week. And I guess we did go one day later than normal for the week. But the last show we had, Ezekiel Elliott was still on the team.
Yeah.
So that's just funny how
We were expecting it to happen.
We were expecting it to happen, but it's just like that seems so long ago.
Yeah.
Now we've moved so much. Okay, Ronald Jones, Band-Aid. To me, insurance policy type guy going into the draft. You don't have to reach for a running back if you don't want to, because you feel like you have the running backs that can get through a game. But I don't think Ronald Jones is going to stop you from taking the running back that you want if he's there.
Yeah, I think with Ronald Jones is when he came out of college out of USC, it was very similar style with what we see with Zeke, a very physical runner, hit the hole, get through the hole, run through tacklers and stuff. Not a whole lot of wiggle to his game, but he was a guy that always, when you handed him the football, he was going forward. He was going to make positive yards. Band-Aid, bridge, whatever you want to. It never, the Cowboys are really big in protecting themselves. And that's something that Will has always done here is, to like Nick's point, you don't have to take a guy because we got a guy, or it doesn't prohibit you from taking a guy. It's not one of those things. Now, we'll see what the situation when we did our mock draft on the draft show today. When you start to talk about the trades they made for the corner and then for the wide receiver, well, maybe that makes you think a little bit differently about those positions because those are players that you absolutely are going to count on to play. So maybe you don't take the wide receiver, or maybe you don't take the cornerback when you're looking at that. side. Maybe it takes, instead of having to be a priority, you've now kind of lowered it to like, okay, we could do it a little bit later in the draft. So I don't think the Ronald Jones signing keeps him from drafting a running back here.
And I'll say this about Ronald Jones. I mean, when you have the ball as an offensive coordinator, and you have the ball at your own 2 to 3 yard line, your goal is to get the ball to the 5. You're trying to get breathing room. If you give the ball to a guy and he scores a touchdown, that's a different type of back. And if you have a 98-yard touchdown in his repertoire, that's just a different type of player. I mean, like, you have a guy that can be a power back, like Brian says, but also has the speed to take it to the house. Yeah. I'm not saying he's going to do that all the time, but anybody that can go 98 yards, I think has got something special to him. So I think that's intriguing too.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen in the draft just yet. We can talk about it and expect it, but looking at it right now, looking at what you currently have, Tony Pollard, and then this guy. How do you see the combination of these two working together as opposed to what you had before, where we knew it was working in a balance with?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is because we had an idea when Kellen Moore was calling plays, but it took him 4 years to figure out how to use Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
So maybe now with Mike McCarthy, Mike's come out and said, "Hey, I'm more interested in trying to run the football." I think he's just kind of just telling you that. I think Mike's still going to throw the football here. I don't worry about him saying, turning into a 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense. I feel like he's going to incorporate. Yes, the ability with Jones. Nick's right though. The power, the speed. That combination. You have the speed, the quickness with Pollard. Coming off an injury, you really don't know. We've seen what happens with guys coming off injuries around here. We saw it with a wide receiver. We've seen it with a quarterback. We've seen it with others. That's the big unknown right now for the Cowboys is how are Tony Pollard. You trust that Britt Brown and Tony and those guys are going to work extremely hard and get ready to play, but you just really, really don't know. But the combination is you do have speed, you do have quickness, and you do have power.
And I think they're drafting. You draft a running back because you're looking at 2024. What does that look like? Because Pollard's not guaranteed to be here then. I wouldn't think Ronald Jones would be as well. Malik Davis, we'll see how his development goes. But you're drafting a running back for – I view if they draft a back, I'll view it a lot like 10 years ago or so with DeMarco Murray. They had a Felix Jones here. I think they had Tashard Choice. They had established guys here. They drafted a guy. You don't have to be great right away, but we expect you to be pretty good here before too long.
And before we move position, you mentioned Rico Dowdle. That's another guy that the Cowboys signed yesterday. He disappeared last year because of an injury. And then Malik Davis kind of took advantage of that and did what he did. Right now, it is expected for him just to be a guy that's adding depth and compete.
Let's remember, he was a restricted free agent. They could have tendered him. They chose not to tender him, which automatically makes you an unrestricted free agent. So, they didn't do that with Terrence Steele and all that. We get it. I mean, they wanted him back, but at the right price, and I think they got it.
All right, let's move on to another guy that the Cowboys acquired via a trade. They drafted, they did a trade with the Houston Texans, gave up 2 draft picks for wide receiver Brandin Cooks. He's a guy that, again, has the experience. He's a guy that you get ready and bring in here before you head into the draft, having a bigger need prior to heading there. What do you see in a guy like him as far as what kind of experience he brings to the team and how he would fit in?
This is very patient of the Cowboys, a very patient thing that they did because they were interested in Cooks last year during the trade deadline and offered a 3rd-round pick for the opportunity to draft him. Houston tried to hold him up for a 2. Dallas basically said, no, we're not interested in doing that. So now you give the 5 and the 6, the 5th, I believe, is a compensatory pick. The Cowboys have done a great job of taking these compensatory picks and now turning them into players. Instead of using them to draft players, they've turned them into legitimate players that can help them this year. So I think it's a brilliant move on their part. Like I say, the patience was there. They got Houston to eat part of the contract. Adam Pacifica, the cap guy, and them negotiated an extra year and with a lower salary and stuff like that. Great job on their part to do that. So, yeah, you have a guy that wants to be here. I think a couple of the moves that they made with these trades have been really positive because you got no new money. You got money taken away from a guy and who wants to be here, and then the corner, Gilmore, he wants to be here and no added extra money there. So, that's a really nice job by them of taking using the compensatories and then not having to add any more new money to any of these deals. These guys want to be here. They want to play. They're excited about it, and they're both really good players.
Yeah, and they traded next year's pick, one of next year's picks for Cooks, but you got to look at it. They're definitely going to get 2 compensatory picks back with Schultz and McGovern, and we'll see about Noah Brown. Probably not, but we'll see. But what I love about Brandin Cooks is I'm not concerned about the guy that gets 1,000 yards from Tom Brady and Drew Brees. I like the guy that got 1,000 yards from Davis Mills. That to me shows that he is scheme friendly. He can go into different situations. I love his attitude. He's not worried about a guy being traded disgruntled. He looks at it from a positive standpoint on somebody wants me. Somebody wanted me bad enough to wait before I got cut. He says iron sharpens iron. Him and Gilmore have played together. New England, good friends. Yeah, he loves going up against Trayvon Diggs in practice every day. I think it's a great move, like Brian said. Very patient. Could have done this last year. Probably needed him last year, but that's okay. I mean, you got him now. Different type of receiver too. He was shorter than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
I didn't consider him a short receiver. He is, but
if you
look at his numbers.
If you're one of those folks that believe in metrics, all the numbers that talk about routes and how they run routes and stuff like that, he's very comfortable running the routes that potentially Mike McCarthy could ask him to do, the inside breaking routes, the slants, the flats, the things like that. Anything that he can. It's not just throw him a screen and let him run. This guy makes plays down the field. The vertical routes they call a 9 route. He's really comfortable doing that because he's got the speed. He's got the ability to track the ball.
So right now you see him as a guy who would have a clear role.
Absolutely. Now, see, that's what I'm saying. We've got to figure out what Brian Schottenheimer's offense really is. That's what we got to figure out. Because let's be honest, Mike McCarthy is going to call the plays, but Brian Schottenheimer is going to be a very big influence on what they do. Brian Schottenheimer is going to be the guy primarily that's going to be coaching, presenting the offense. Mike McCarthy is going to have the play sheet and have that ability to call the offense. So we really don't know. We can go back and look at where Brian Schottenheimer has been before. Jacksonville, Seattle, places like that, and trying. But until we get out here and start seeing him play games, we really don't. Is it? Everybody likes to use the word West Coast and this, that. There's versions. There's different versions of these offenses, and we don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I think there's things that they want to keep for Dak, but I don't know if they completely want to keep everything. The big point of disconnect seemed to be the option routes, and that's something that Dak's like, no, keep those in. Mike's like, I've never really worked with the option. Kellen Moore's like, well, yeah, you have to have the option. I think that's a little bit of like what was going on, a little bit of disconnect there between the two on what they wanted to do. So until we physically see them start playing games, it's really kind of an unknown. But Brian Schottenheimer, I think, is going to have his thumbprint on this offense.
Do you feel, Nick, that this is, after getting him and knowing that you still have Jalen Tolbert that's still developing, he hasn't done anything yet, but we're hoping that he can take that next step this year. How do you see the wide receiver position heading into the draft?
Yeah, I mean, they also extended Gallup a little bit longer, so that means that his contract's probably, they could have got out of it last year. I think if they didn't extend it and they extended it, he's going to be here. CD, I would imagine they're going to get on a deal with him. So I think they just have options. I mean, Cooks should be here for a little bit. We'll see about Jalen Tolbert. But if there's a receiver that they like, even as high as the first round, I'd be surprised about the first round. But even if there's somebody that they like, I think that they've done enough where they're not married to anything. They can still get it, but they could wait till day 3 of the draft and get a receiver if they wanted to. That's what they're doing in free agency, is just not putting themselves in a box to go get a receiver or any position really if they have to.
Definitely feels like you're in a better position right now than you were last year with all the unknowns. Let's take our first break. When we come back, let's try to figure out what's happening in the O-line and how that's looking like and what's going to happen there moving forward after the break.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, singing, and toasting Miller Lite in 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
When you build, you start with the foundation. And home ownership is a foundation of a stable future. The Bank of America Community Home Ownership Commitment has helped over 34,000 people lay the groundwork so far, with up to $10,000 towards your down payment or 3% of the purchase price, whichever is less. The satisfaction of owning your own place can become a reality. Visit bankofamerica.com/homeowner to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America NA, Equal Housing Lender. Credit and collateral is subject to approval. Restrictions apply. This is not a commitment to lend.
Back to the break.
Get your spring shopping in during Market at the Star, presented by Fleece Style. Come out to the Star in Frisco on Saturday, April 1st. Browse from over 50 local vendors, from fashion to home goods, jewelry, and more. Visit thestardistrict.com/events for more info.
Welcome back to the second segment of the break, presented by blockchain.com. There we go. Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk about this O-line. So the guy,
Let me know what you figured out.
I keep wanting to say the guys, the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys, they signed Chuma Edoga. Mm-hmm. Is that how you say his name?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Right now, they're not necessarily listing him as anything specific. He seems to have very good precision flex.
Yeah.
But what do you think of a guy like him coming in here?
Yeah,
what he can do?
Clearly, this is where, again, I look what Will and Steven are trying to do. And you have a veteran guy here who you mentioned has some position flex. You'll get into camp. You'll play some games. You might have, depending on you want to evaluate your quarterback, depending on if you want to evaluate your running backs, depending on if you want to evaluate your wide receivers. Veteran offensive linemen that could play in preseason games, that could practice and maybe be swing guys, or maybe they fit in, maybe they make the team and help you with those backup roles. The one thing that he'll do is, though, when you play preseason games, he'll be able to play in the third and fourth quarters of games. You don't want to put a bunch of guys out there. Nothing against Alarcon, or I know he's making a position switch, but you got guys out there that are just fighting just to kind of hang on, and you really can't evaluate your team that way. I see this as a guy they're going to try and see if he has enough to be a swing guy. But the big picture thought of a guy like that, to me, is when you get in these preseason games and you want to evaluate other players, he's not going to make huge mistakes. He's going to play in the game. He's going to be steady. He's played games before. And so you are able to evaluate your team, not putting 5 guys out there that make their quarterback running for your life, or the running backs can't get evaluated, or they can't even get the ball out to the wide receivers. So a veteran guy like that, try and make the team through preseason, and then see if you could be a swing guy come to be on the 53 for the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you got a guy that can play guard and tackle, I mean, you take him to the game. That's like, it's just like having 2 backups there that you can bring to the game. He did start at guard against with the Falcons his last season and got hurt, but so he's been mostly a tackle. And he's a teammate of Ronald Jones from college at USC. So he's played at USC. He was a tackle, but mostly a tackle. But then now I think they're kind of working him at guard. At 6'3", 308. If you look at the tackles this team has had with Tyler Smith, Terrence Steele. I mean, going all the way back to Doug Free, Flozell. I mean, they like their guys to be able to rebound and play basketball down in the in the paint. At 6'3", 308. That looks like a guard to me.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that's how they view him. And one of those guys that are like, we'd like to draft a guard, and this guy's not going to prevent us from drafting a guard. But if we don't get to it, we're okay. I don't know who their left guard is if they had to play tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the
Probably
thing.
Tyler Smith.
Yeah, I think that's, to me, if somebody could tell me what they're going to do with Tyron Smith, and that's kind of where I'm thinking that. Starting to hear the whispers that maybe you're looking at Tyron Smith as what the role of Jason Peters was last year.
Yeah.
And they don't want to move Tyler Smith from left. Now, it's going to be vastly different. If they draft a guard in the first round, the two names that people have kind of tagged them to, this kid Torrance from Florida, he's well over 330 pounds. Avila from TCU is well at 330 pounds as well. It will be a different guy. If that 26 they pick either one of those guards, it will be a different looking body than what they've usually had there at left guard.
I'm all for it too, because I've said it all the time. You get into the red zone, and they've relied on Zeke to be the guy to kind of push the pile. I don't think Tony Pollard is going to be moving the pile himself. I mean, he can get to it quicker than anybody else, but sometimes you just have to be able to move the pile. And I think they've had McGovern, they've had Biotish. If you can get a guy like 330 power, strong blocker like that, I'm all for it, because they really haven't had that since Ron Leary. I think at that position.
Well, let's move on to a guy they signed yesterday, Trent Sieg.
Yeah. Here's what happened there at snapper. I mean, I think they wanted Jake McQuaide back. But,
I think they did
but
too.
But at a price, not to the, and McQuade's from the Northeast or from Ohio, I believe, and wanted to go up there to Detroit. Sometimes it's just kind of a carousel type thing at deep snapper. McQuaide was here because Fossil liked him with the Rams. So what happened with Sieg? Sieg was with the Raiders for 5 years, no bad snaps, no blocks, nothing. Did everything you're supposed to do, played every game. The Raiders hired a new coach. I think his name's McMahon from Denver. And Denver had a guy that was a free agent. I forget his name. It's a long name, Bokenkamp or something like Bokenbiber. I don't know. He played for Denver. The guy wanted his own guy.
Yeah.
So Sieg's out. And now the
Much
Cowboys
like McQuaide and Bones.
Exactly.
10 years together and stuff like that. Yeah.
So this is a guy, he's not on the street because he sucked. He's on the street because it wasn't the preference of the new coach. And, the new coach comes in and knows.
And we see that happen all
see
the
it happen
time.
all the time. So this is a guy that's good. They like him. And, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, the thing with the snappers, but we saw last year, though, without McQuaide, there were a couple of games where there were some issues. There were some issues with the snaps, whether it was, I think it was in the Commanders game that ended up being a block or a tip or something like that. There was,
Overton.
Overton had, and then they had a low snap. I mean, they had a smother situation, with the holder and trying to get the ball up, and it's no good. And you're kind of wondering, was that the point when all of a sudden, your kicker started going south mentally because, was there some uncertainty there? That's a position that, and I always say, listen, you never know who the snapper is, and you don't want to ever know who the snapper is. You just don't. You don't. Well, that was a bad snap. Well, who was the snapper? And then now you start to, and it's all about the operation. It starts with that snap, and if you don't have a guy that's super reliable, and they've had snappers here that have played, 15 years. They've done this job, and had absolutely no problems. But then when you start to have some poor snaps and the operations get affected, and then you start to blame the kicker, and you're like, well, wait a minute, watch the guy. The ball's on the ground. The holder has to smother it on the ground and then get it up, to try and get it in the air. So we'll see.
This is the first time since I think 2010, so 13 years, first time that they've had a deep snapper in his 20s.
Yeah.
Because LP did it for so long, and you can. This is a position that you can do it.
Dale Hellestrade did it forever before that. I mean, well before that.
But where that does come into play is you do snap the ball and run down the field, and you can make a play or you can make a tackle and all that.
Hopefully
so
recover a fumble.
Yeah, you get down there and be athletic, be an athlete. So McQuaid's in his 30s. Overton, who they signed last year, also in his 30s. So they're getting a young guy, which also is important too. This guy does his job and does well. Maybe he could be here for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've had like I said, Jeff Robinson. Remember Jeff Robinson back in the day? Yeah.
2 catches, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's right.
But his role was snapper.
Well, definitely a solid guy. And who can do the job. So
we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see once you combine everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Another guy, we're just going to brush through him, but just to mention him, we already talked about him a lot last week, Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah.
Him coming in the team, everybody loves the
Brian
train
wasn't on our show last week, were you?
No.
What? Yeah, just curious. What's your thoughts on?
You were.
Wait.
I was. I know. I've been here.
No, you were. It wasn't Derek. It wasn't Derek.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No.
I'm pretty sure
my bad.
No.
Because I did ask you because I
billed you for it, so I think I was here.
Yeah. No, because I remember thinking when we did the Colts game, I was like, I thought he was a guy that was like, yeah, he's not what he used to be or whatever. And maybe he's not, but he got an interception in that game. And
5 targets and only 2 receptions on him on that day. So the thing about it is I talked to my guys and gals around the league that watch tape full time, through these teams, and both moves that Dallas made, everybody was on board. I didn't hear anybody like, I don't know about that one. You're not going to get anything. Everything was very, very positive about Gilmore. Everything was very positive about Cooks. I think the thing with Gilmore, and I mentioned this earlier, and like you said, Amber, we can get through this. No new money. No new money there. He didn't come in here and say, listen, for me to make this trade, we've got to rework my contract. We've got to do this. There weren't a lot of demands. He was very interested in, he was very positive about, if you listen to his press conference, he's talking about his family, the Cowboy fans in his family. He's very excited about being here. And the fact you got him and he's not interested in saying, well, you got to give me an extra $5 million and you got to add years and you got to do that. No, he was clearly ready to play. He was happy about it and he could still play at a high level.
Yeah, and I want to know when the last time he's gone to a place where he is. And I'm not saying he's the number 2 cornerback because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. We've got some good athletes coming in here. It looks like we need to draft one of these guys. We got a tour coming through here. But I think that who knows who's better between Gilmore and Diggs. But let's find out. I mean, let's see. I mean, if maybe this guy pushes Diggs a little bit. Maybe Diggs pushes him. As far as let's go. Who's got the number 1 guy? We talk about it all the time. Well, is Diggs going to cover him? What if Gilmore covers him? Who knows? This is a good problem to have.
Well, same as the wide receiver position. Me personally, definitely feel a lot better now than at this time last year.
Right.
Of how they had addressed the
Well,
position.
how did you feel in December when they were trying to win games and we couldn't figure out who the left corner was?
Exactly.
It's Kelvin Joseph. It's Izzy. How many guys did it was like going to a movie, going through the turnstile. Like hey,
Trayvon Mullen.
Yeah,
today.
try this guy. Try this guy.
Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah, try. How many different guys did they try?
Yeah, a lot.
And so, that again, and this is a deep draft, by the way, for corners. This should, if they want to go and grab one at some point in time, you should probably get a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and if the first round, if the best guy on their board is a corner,
yeah.
I would consider it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it probably wouldn't be my preference, if all things being equal, but then again, I would imagine they're going to try to re-sign Diggs. I mean, I hope that's not in the.
They've got to do it sooner than later because you don't have that 5th-year option. And if you ask me which one would they try and do first, I think Diggs is going to be the more difficult one.
Me too.
I just think it's going to be tough, and you don't have that extra year to work with. You just don't. Now, you can use franchise tags and stuff like that, but I don't think that the Diggs contract is going to be anything easy. I mean, Adam, Pacific, those guys, I think they work really, really hard with these agents to try and lay groundwork and to see what they have to do. But this one is not going to be. You have a very emotional player, and a player that likes to kind of put his business out there a little bit in social media. So we'll see how this plays.
Yeah, but I think that they are trying to re-sign him. I think you got Gilmore here. Deron Bland looks like a good young player. Yeah. You drafted 2 other guys that I mean, let's be honest. When they drafted Kelvin Joseph in the second round and Nashawn Wright in the third round, I don't think that they expected that the very next season they would be having to find all these corners off the street and then trade for whatever. They have not hit the expectations. That's
fact.
Easy. It's facts.
Yeah.
And so, what their future looks like is up to them, really, at this point.
Okay, let's take our final break. When we come back, we're going to get into all the in-house guys that have signed a deal with the Cowboys and are staying in Dallas.
The season is finally here. For months, we've been gearing up to win. Now it's time for the team that performs on any field, United Ag and Turf. With John Deere zero turns for mowing, compact tractors for loading, mini excavators for digging, Gator utility vehicles for hauling, implements for grading, hay tools for baling. United Ag and Turf, for winning. The official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com for more.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
This week! Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is.
It's a non-fungible token. Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
When you build, you start with the foundation. And home ownership is a foundation of a stable future. The Bank of America Community Homeownership Commitment has helped over 34,000 people lay the groundwork so far, with up to $10,000 towards your down payment or 3% of the purchase price, whichever is less. The satisfaction of owning your own place can become a reality. Visit bankofamerica.com/homeowner to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America N.A. Equal Housing Lender. Credit and collateral is subject to approval. Restrictions apply. This is not a commitment to lend.
Back to the break.
Stay ready for your spring break adventures with Cowboys Nation Essentials. Visit your local pro shop or log on to shop.dallascowboys.com. .cop, I like that. And discover travel accessories, staycation must-haves, and more.
Don't sound too excited. That was such an exciting read.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know what your spring break adventures are. I mean, in Cowboys Nation Essentials, we're kind of done with spring break. I would think some people are. I don't know.
All right, let's talk about some of the
go to Pro
in-house
Shop
guys.
and find some cool stuff. Pro Shop.
Go.
There you go.
Pro Shop will help you out.
Yeah, whatever you need, it's there.
Dante Fowler. He's a guy that signed a one-year deal with the Cowboys, a guy that clearly Dan Quinn really likes, and a guy that he's a low-key, very important guy in the defense. Like, he's not necessarily getting all the attention from the flashy plays making there, but he was a very productive guy and a key player, in my eyes, for the
sacks.
defense.
6 sacks is good. That's a good role player there.
Yeah, I think that to me that there was some questions like, could he still come in and give you something? And clearly, I'm learning. Year 3 of Dan Quinn and defensive coaching staff, just bring them guys. They'll coach these guys up. They'll figure out. They'll get the best out of them. They'll find spots for them to play. You don't have questions about defense here. It's the questions we have is about the offense. Yeah. How's it going to be? How's it going to look? Who's going to play where? Who's going to line up where? That's kind of where I'm with. But the defense, if you've told me, hey, if they keep adding defensive players, I'm just like, Dan Quinn and the staff will figure it out.
This has been an A. I would grade this as an A- to an A. This whole offseason free agency for the Cowboys so far.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Well, yeah, I was going to get it to an A+. It can get to an A+.
Can it get to an A+? Okay, they love to draft, right? Mm-hmm. That's their favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. If you took out the trades, what would you give them grade-wise?
I think you give them a B minus.
Yeah, see, that's
just solid.
Because we're so used to around here sign our own, develop our own, bring. I think because the whole thing, I thought the first signing was honestly going to be on the opening day of free agency on that Monday or the tampering period. They were going to run the Jake McQuaid one at me. They were going to run that one at me, and everybody else is signing, big time players, and they're like, oh, they got the long snapper done. But on day 2, they started doing things. When the Donovan Wilson one, I didn't think they could get done. Not from what I was hearing from the combine. Again, give the front office a lot of credit for getting that done. But to me, I would have just kind of like you. I would have said B minus. It's kind of what they do. Maybe even a C. But the fact that they got guys back that I didn't think they were going to get Van Der Esch. I didn't think they were going to get Donovan Wilson done. But then these trades kind of put it over the top for me when you start to talk about your A, and I'll let you talk about the A plus of it all.
I just think right now they've done everything they needed to do so far. And and they let Schultz go, which is fine. I had no problems with that. I don't think that was going to be a good scenario to bring him back. The one that to me that can bring it over the top to me is just Hankins. You see a big difference there with Hankins when he wasn't there, and I think he's a different type of player.
Do you know where they're at with that?
They want him. They want him back, but they're
do.
standing their ground just like they did with Fowler. Give him credit for that.
Yeah.
The deal is there. You can shop it if you want to, but go shop at Dante Fowler and see if you think that little extra money in not being with Dan Quinn is going to be better for you.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it's not. And I think that's what Hankins is doing right now.
Nick's absolutely right. I talked to guys around the league, and I said, what are you hearing about Hankins? And they're like, he's just dragging his feet. He's dragging his feet here. He's not interested. I mean, he's just kind of dragging and kind of figuring out what he wants to do and stuff like that. And, you got people, like, say, the Cowboys would love to deal with him. But it's on the player too.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys have done a really good job of systematically taking things off their checklist. Obviously they had Donovan Wilson on the top of that checklist, and then they got that one done. Then they got Van Der Esch done. Oh, wait, we can have a shot. Nobody saw the corner. Nobody in the league saw them trading for that corner there at Indianapolis. No, I mean, people are asking me like, man, did you? No way. That was one of those. That might have been one of those when they were and Stephen Jones and Chris Ballard are good friends, the Indianapolis GM. And so you're kind of like, maybe at the combine, maybe they bumped into each other. Hey, I've got Gilmore available. You interested? Yeah, what do you want? And then, you circle back. Nobody saw that. And then, they just kind of been picking off guys. They moved on. They clearly with Dalton Schultz. They gave it a run with Dalton Schultz. I'm talking to people around the league that are hearing, like with Dalton Schultz, that the Cowboys made a significant offer to him, like a 5-year, $12 million a year kind of deal that he turned down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is coming from guys around the league like, hey, listen.
Last year, right?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah,
last year.
Not this year.
Yeah, like, hey, I heard Dallas did this.
Yeah.
Nobody in Dallas will admit that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, none of these guys are going to, no, we're not going to tell you that. But, but people around the league that I trust are like, yeah, Dallas did what they had to do to try and get the guy done. And now, we'll see. We'll see. He'll go on. But this is a very, very, very deep draft with tight ends.
That's great. And they have I think, it's not so much Ferguson last year for me that gives you that comfort to let him go. It's Hendershot. It's looking at what these two guys did.
Yeah.
Just having them both there. And look at what Schultz had to develop into. His first 2 years, he only had 12 catches total, or maybe 13. These two guys have kind of already done that. They look like they've got a little bit more athleticism, and they also shined when Cooper Rush was in. At least Ferguson did as well. So I think that didn't I see photos of the Dak yard the other day?
Yeah.
I thought both of them were out there, or at least Ferguson was for sure, which is great. That developed that thing because Dak wants to throw the ball to the tight end. We know that. And so be available, get up the field, make plays. I think it helps Schultz get his money. It'll help these guys as well.
Well, you guys already mentioned a lot of the names from the defensive side of the ball that are staying with the Cowboys and Dan Quinn. Donovan Wilson, Leighton Vander Esch. We got Tack McKinley. We got C.J. Goodwin.
Tack McKinley was just he played. He was active for one game, right?
He was elevated, but they didn't play him.
See, that's again, when we're talking about a veteran player, you get into preseason games, you're trying to kind of close games out. maybe you're like a veteran guy in there that got a bunch of rookies or a bunch of free agents, and you have one guy in there that can beat a bad tackle a couple of times. That's McKinley. I mean, that's what he is. We'll see if in fact that he can elevate, because if he's been with these guys, Dan Quinn, this guy, AD, they know this guy. They know this player. So hopefully that they can, get something out of him a little bit more than what I'm describing.
And I don't know what the normal number is around the league for teams, but I know this. When the Cowboys, if they do draft at 26 this year, don't trade out of it. If they pick a player, they'll have 12 first-round picks on their team. 12 guys that were first-round picks in their career. That seems like a lot. And McKinley is one of them. So that doesn't mean you're getting 12 talent of first-round picks right now, but you're getting some guys that at least had.
That somebody thought.
Yeah, somebody thought it at some point not too long ago. Tyron Smith's in that group. Malik Hooker. Goes on and on. I mean, there's 11 right now, but that's a pretty big number, and Gilmore is in there. I believe Cooks is as well.
Yeah.
So that's just showing that they're getting some talented player. Let's see if they still got some in the tank. Who was a second-round pick? Tank. He was a second-round pick. High second-round pick.
Tank Lawrence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
traded up. You didn't say Tank.
I just said they have some in the tank. And then I
Tank.
said,
Yeah, Tank. Okay, I see what you're doing.
My humor is not very good. Derek would have checked me on that one.
He would have given you the nod and the
he'd been like
after the show he would have said something.
Terrible joke.
Good one.
Yeah.
I don't think
they signed him. Goodwin. They signed him to a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Goodwin.
Well, see, and they were losing core guys. Gifford, and they lost Noah Brown.
I saw Bones the other day, John Fossil. He was just like, "Oh my God, I was losing so many guys," But he said, "I got a couple of players, I got some wild cards on the team. Guys that didn't play a lot of special teams. It's like, I got some wild cards here." And he didn't mention, he was talking about offensive guys, but I think Devin Harper, it's got to be time for him to really take that next step.
I think to finalize our list is Cooper Rush. I don't think his deal had happened when we did our show.
I tell you what, that's a sneaky good one for you right there. That guy's 5-1 as a quarterback for you.
I'm going to just say this story here. This is how the story I think went. And the Cowboys, if you're excited about getting Cooper Rush, I think you can put it on the weather. Because Cooper Rush, from my understanding, Cooper Rush
supposed to fly somewhere
at the airport, at the gate. He was going to Vegas. He was going to go to the Raiders. At least going to go visit, and they have an offer on the table. But it was that Thursday night where a lot of weather was bad. They actually canceled his flight, and I think he looked at it and said, "This is a sign, and I'm going back to Dallas, and I'm at least going back home for the night." Next morning, he signed with the Cowboys. So, I mean, that's at least
a good story.
That's
a good story.
I hope that's true. I think it's true. And the weather was bad that night. And, when you don't really want to leave, you maybe sometimes you're looking for signs like that. And I think this is a good move for him. I don't know if the Raiders would be a good backup spot for him. Anyways, they got Garoppolo. They're going to draft someone probably. We'll see what happens there. This is a good spot. He's comfortable with Dak. He's still got to beat out Will Grier, though. Will Grier was coming on strong last year. So it'll be interesting.
And according to Jerry Jones, they're going to be drafting a quarterback every year in the draft.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I think they'll pick a quarterback this year.
Yeah, but I don't think every year. I don't.
But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Like it's not a bad plan. I grew up in that plan in Green Bay, and it's not a bad plan. It really is. One year we had
So typically,
Brett Favre.
Round are you looking at for that?
What's that?
What round are you looking at for that?
It'll be interesting to see if they take one at the third round. That would be very interesting. It might be very telling if you take one that early. But there's some good ones in this draft. There are actually some really good cornerback. My favorite is a kid named Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, but you would have to grab him. I think maybe late second, early third. You would have to grab him. But yeah, we'll see. There's area, but doing that though. 1 year in Green Bay, like I say, we had Brett Favre, Mark Brunell, Ty Detmer, and Kurt Warner were our four quarterbacks. And we went after Warner. He was a free agent, but we went after him because we had him on the board So when you go and you just stockpile as many of these quarterbacks.
You signed him at Albertsons? Where'd you sign it?
He was
stocking groceries.
This is pre-bag. This is pre-bagger.
Oh, pre-bagger.
This is pre-bagger.
He
went from us to bagging to barnstorming.
And then Super Bowl MVP.
And Super Bowl MVP.
That's usually the way it works,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Always.
That's how the path of a Hall of Fame quarterback.
That's how it works.
Yeah, get cut, go bag, go barnstorm.
Go bag, go Arena League.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, and that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you so much, guys, for Nikki Mint, Brian Broaddus. I'm Amber Garcia. This has been The Break on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.